anyone have any questions for Brad?
I can talk loud too if you can hear me. I was just curious, both for you and for your dad, what was it like being in the hospital during COVID and not being able to have like as much family support? I know you had FaceTime, but not being able to be in person.
Yeah, good question. That was really hard. When I left my room, I had to wear a mask. It was weird. I was wearing a mask full time. In my therapy I think in therapy sessions we could take masks off. I don't know, I forget. But it was my dad and my dad every day when we drove here today. He said this is bringing back memories of when I would drive to Spalding. But he stayed with me. He would go to the window. I was on the 8th floor. I had a perfect view of this park right outside Spalding Hospital, and he would wave out the window. We'd FaceTime and talk. I was with my mom. She'd probably say different things, but I enjoy staying in the room with her. And some of my friends actually would come to the window, and they did that a couple times. They held up signs, and I would FaceTime them. It was great to see them. But yeah, it was really hard being in the hospital during COVID. It was like I came back, and this was the only thing I knew, really.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that, the whole thing evolved right when Brad got to Spalding. This was kind of early to mid-March of 2020, and the first day it was like normal visitors policies, and my father, Brad's grandfather, visited. Literally the next day they said, new policy, there can only be one visitor at a time. And so Brad's mother and I would do a handoff where one of us would take the morning shift, one of us would take the evening shift. That lasted for maybe 3 or 4 days, and then the policy became only one parent is allowed in the hospital, and if that parent leaves, they can't come back. And so for our family, it was kind of a no-brainer, as hard as it was, that Brad's mother moved in and stayed, as Brad said, stayed the duration of the time. And I could only come and visit outside. I was bringing protein shakes, I was taking dirty laundry and bringing clean clothes. And one of the most ironic parts of the policy was that Jessica, Brad's mother, was not allowed to leave the hospital. And she likes to exercise, get fresh air. The only people who were allowed to leave were if you were a cigarette smoker. You could go outside to smoke, but you couldn't go outside to jog. So that was...
Yeah, she couldn't even leave the unit.
The floor, right?
Yeah, she had to stay on the unit, couldn't even go down to the cafeteria, get any change of scenery. It was very restrictive.
And you can think about how disorienting that could be, especially, you feel like you're in a dream. You're like, well, why can't I just go outside and see people? So it was very, I don't know, for you, Emily, explaining like what COVID was and like why he couldn't leave, like if that was challenging or if it was just.
Yeah, we didn't really dive into that. We had some bigger fish to fry at the time, but yeah, it just kind of was how it was. Is there a question over there first? Yeah.
What was it like for you transitioning back into going to school after being away for so months?
Another good question. So getting back to school, I was very prepared for school. My summer before school was speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. Like I was on a good schedule. I was working with a math tutor, with an English tutor before, so I made up all the work that I missed in math and English. So I was ready to get back to school academically, but I had all these different strategies for memory and for attention in class, and my CRC team's therapy team really helped me be prepared for school, and that was great.
So I'm working with some of the kids that are on that floor right now where you stayed in Spalding, and something that I'm curious about is what helped you during those times when you didn't leave anybody. I know there was nothing that anyone could say, but a lot of times I feel like there could be something else we could do, and I was just curious what helped you in those times to kind of comfort you to make you feel a little bit better.
The support I was getting from all my therapists and my mom and dad definitely comforted me to be able to.
I was just thinking that kind of leads in something that you did a lot towards the end was you kept a journal, didn't you? Do you remember that?
Yeah,
You wrote things down? Yeah. I feel like you got out a lot of your feelings sometimes by writing.
Yeah, I was writing a lot. but getting support from people and honestly, when I was like taking my parents' phones and looking up like 10 things you can't do in a dream to see if I could do them, like, cause this must be a dream, I can't do anything you do in a dream. And like seeing like, okay, can you feel, can you taste, can you smell, like, and being able to then realize, and after time I was getting back to like my normal self and realizing, okay, this can't be a dream, there's no way, but just people being nice to me and everybody had strategies on like to not answer when I asked how to wake yourself up. I don't think they would answer the questions when I would ask that. They would just say like, Brad, you're gonna be okay. Like they would just keep on reassuring me.
I think you mentioned there was a time where your screen time was limited.
Yeah.
And with COVID, everything pretty much transitioned to a world of screens and FaceTiming and Zoom school. Were there any challenges you faced with having limited screen time, or did that still come into play?
Yeah, good question. So all my therapies were on Zoom. I don't know if that was technically counted as screen time by my doctor because I wasn't like facing my screen on that. It was more just being filmed and doing therapies through that. But also through the screen time, it was like I didn't really want to be on my phone as much as I would want to. Do you think I want to? Because like I would just not feel good. It would make me feel lightheaded. I had a spell of being lightheaded a bunch and I'd go on the screen. So it was like kind of just a given to not be on my phone that much.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. Yes.
This might be more of a question for your dad, I'm sorry. What was the transition like coming from the hospital out of state to getting transferred here? Is that something that you really had to advocate for, or was it more of like a natural progression?
There were some logistics around the insurance and the scheduling of it that fortunately I didn't have to be directly involved with, but it took several days to kind of get the logistics lined up, and then fortunately there was a room open in Spalding, and we were like ready to pull whatever strings were needed. Honestly, as I think back to it, it was so much in the background of what I was worried about. You saw his state when he left Colorado Children's, and it was just a matter of like, is he going to be okay? And there was so much uncertainty and worry that the transfer was welcome and necessary and nice, but it just was like in the back of my mind of yes, I got to fill out these forms and the papers. So it ended up happening fairly smoothly.
Thank you.